what they are. And he's talking about noblemen, not noblemen in the sense of that we saw in England and Europe in the 16th, 17th century, 13th, 14th, 15th, all through that area. No, he's not talking about those kind of noblemen. He's talking about true nobles, true noblemen, true people who have earned the right to be in the position by their actions and by who they are, and have proved themselves to be wise men, merciful and prudent in their actions. This is what he's talking about. So we take a word and then we say, well, it's like that. No, it isn't. Don't make that mistake. Because I don't think Henry VIII was a nobleman. I don't think Henry III was a nobleman. I don't think Louis XI was a nobleman. These were despotic men. So, don't misunderstand what he's saying here. He says, if you dig a pit, you fall in it. If you break through a wall, a snake bites you. If you work in a stone quarry, you get hurt by the stones. If you split wood, you get hurt doing it. If your axe is dull and you don't sharpen it, you have to work harder to use it. It is smarter to plan ahead. When you put it in modern English, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Yeah. And yet we talk that way. This is the way we talk to each other. It's the way we converse. And yet when we go to the Bible, we like to thus and thou and thee. And, we never say y'all in the Bible. It's not there. There wasn't any Southern Christians, in those days. And so y'all isn't there. It's funny how we look at things. The first thing God established among men was the family. Why? Why didn't he just make Adam and forget it? There you are, Adam. I can make more of you. I'll make you a buddy. I'll make you 3 or 4 more over here, and y'all just have a good time. He looked all through the animals and found no suitable helpmeet for Adam. And so he made him one. And he brought her to him. And he said, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. And they had sons and daughters. It was a dysfunctioning family. And it was dysfunctional because Adam lost his headship.
Amen. Yes.
Not over his family, he lost his headship from the Father.
Yes, he did. Yes.
He no longer recognized the headship of the Father, walking in his own path and in his own way, and created the first dysfunctional family, one son rising up and killing his brother, an act of murder. From the beginning, it dysfunctioned. From that time until today, God has tried to bring it back into a functioning system. Why do you think Jesus spent so much time talking about what he was doing in relationship to the family? You are the family of God. I'm going to bid you to the wedding supper of the Lamb, is how a family starts, is it not? With a wedding. Go out and ask him to come to the supper. He called us sons and brothers, not servants, not strangers. The first act that Jesus did was call 12 men to train. He had one dysfunctional one in that family of 12. He was a murderer, like Cain. He sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver. So the church that we call it isn't a church at all. It's a family. God is the Father, and we are the children. But we need to learn to understand that and learn to also mimic it and do it in our families. That's why in the early church, Paul spent a lot of time talking about backbiting and whispering and all that among the family. Why do you hate each other? Why do you backbite and whisper and gossip on each other? It's your brother and your sister. It's your aunt and uncle. That's your mom and dad. That's your kids. What are you whispering about? Don't you understand what a family is? Well, I just don't. You just because that's my brother and sister, I don't have to like them. Yeah, you do. I don't care what you think. You say, well, they just don't. Well, maybe you're not good either. Maybe you got some ways about you that other people think stink. But we never think of ourselves as having any flaws. No, God, I'm perfect. There's not a flaw anywhere in me. Everybody would love me. Everybody would have to love me. Because I'm so perfect. Apollo and Adonna wouldn't have been, they couldn't stand in my shadow. Because after all, mercy. You say, oh, well, it's not that severe, Brother Bob. Oh, yeah, it is. We just don't let it out. We won't admit that we think that way. But you see, we're all the same, actually. Oh, we're different in our ways and our actions and personalities and so forth and so on. I understand that. God made it that way. God loves diversity. In creation, He does. Look at it. Do you know how many? I looked this up because Pam's been complaining about the cottonwood trees. I don't blame her. It's a mess at her house. It really is. But you know how many different species of cottonwood tree there is?
Yeah.
There's about 30.
Chop them all down.
There you go.
Of the one tree. Now, all of them don't do that, though. The aspen is a cottonwood. Huh. There's insects and animals on this earth that we're still discovering. Did you know that? I saw an article not long ago about a brand new insect or animal somewhere they'd found in the jungle someplace, never even knew it existed. Somebody run across one, said, there it is, look at that. Gave it a name. And God's not a God of diversity? Some of the things He made, I don't know why He made them. Mosquitoes, I don't know why God made a mosquito. I wouldn't have done it. But He did. He made it all. It's diverse. It's beautiful. It all works together. In all of its complexity, it's simple. It really is. They were looking for a cure for bacterial infections like pneumonia and so forth, and they did everything they could to find it, and finally one day a guy found it by accident. Because that mold had kept growing on his cultures, killing them, that he was trying to get rid of, was the cure. He was griping because he couldn't keep the cultures alive long enough to study them, to find something that would kill them. And so penicillin was born. This mold that we call today penicillin that killed the bacteria. Light bulb. We're so brilliant. See, we're too brilliant for simple things. We're too smart. It couldn't be that way. It couldn't happen that way. It's too simple. Then we walk around and brag about the discovery we made. Oh, isn't it? Yes, I did it. Yes, I discovered that. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm so brilliant. I just, I won't admit to you really how I found it, but I mean, after all, I did it. All of these things work against us being who we really should be as a family. God told them to be fruitful, bear children. Then the children were the responsibility of the parent to be taught in how they should be. See, how we prepare ourselves is going to determine our life, if we make it or not. And that's what the church doesn't hear today. We don't hear it said. We don't do it. We come together, everybody got their little cliques and here and there, and they visit and they sing their songs, hear the feel good message, and go home until next week, forgetting all about it being a family. It's a family. Brian said this a long time ago, and you've heard me say it. The word grace, meaning the encampment. Well, the earliest encampments, like Abraham's and those, were all made of family.
Yes.
That was the family. So you could say the family was grace. The protection of the family, the protection of the encampment became the grace, because that's what the Hebrew word means. The encampment. Grace. See, if we say by the grace of God, we mean something totally different than that. But actually, by the grace of God is by the family of God. By being in the family, being in the encampment. That's what grace is. We think it's favor. No. It's not favor. It's family. It's being inside the group where God does protect. See, God overshadows His family. He protects His family. So as we grow, as we are nurtured, as we grow up in the Lord, we grow up also in our family. And it's the mother and father's responsibility, mine, yours, all the rest of it. It's our responsibility to train up the child in the way he should go, so that when he is old, he won't depart from it. Somebody said, well, some of them do. Yeah, they do. No matter what you do. But if you've done what you're supposed to do, then you can stand before God with a clean conscience. I did my best. I told him. I tried. God never got on the father of the prodigal son, because the prodigal had been taught correctly. The prodigal's problem was he rejected the father.
Yes. Yes.
And rejected the mother.
Yes.
And went his own way. And where'd he end up? Go ahead on. Don't pay attention to mom and dad. Don't pay attention to family, and see where it leads you. See where you get. It wouldn't be hard at all, I mean not at all, to do a survey of people's lives and find example after multitude of examples of this. Where'd you end up when you disowned your mother and father and their instruction? Where'd you end up? Go ahead. And see, that's why God doesn't feel any guilt about anything either, because He's told us. You make a choice. But you're going to stand before Him one day and give an account for your life. Not anybody else's. You're not going to be able to blame it on anybody else. Not going to be able to blame it nowhere. You're not going to have anybody stand as a witness. Nobody's going to be there, just you. And you're going to have to look at God, and God's going to look at you and say, what did you do with your life? And what did you do with Jesus? You better have an answer. Better have an answer, because if you don't, it's going to go rough on you. He says here in the 16th verse of this chapter, I read down through the 10th, but in the 16th verse he says something. Or it's the 18th. It's in Proverbs, rather, 18:16. Not Ecclesiastes. Sorry. Had my thoughts running in another direction here. Got to get myself back what I'm looking at. Proverbs 18:16 says, "A man's gift makes a way for him and brings him before great men." A man's gift. Now, what Solomon was talking about in that day, when you went before the king, if you were summoned before a king, for whatever reason, if you came as a representative from another nation, another country, or whatever you did, you brought a gift. And depending on the gift you brought, depended on the king's favor to you. The right gift brought great favor. So what a man has to give makes a way for him and brings him before great men. Now, there's more to it than just that, though, because it is an example of something. What you have to give makes a way for you. It's just like in life. You go and you go to school for 12 years. Then you may go to college for 4 or 5 more, or whatever you have to do to get the degree you're looking for. Why do you do that? It's simple, so you have something to give. Because what you learn is what you can give to a company, a corporation, a small business, whatever. You have to be able to give them something for them to pay you something. So what do you have to give? The more you have to give determines your pay scale or your pay grade. Yeah, it does. If you want to work at McDonald's all your life, nothing wrong with it. But if that's where you want it, then don't learn to give nothing. Except just your ability to take an order and serve a hamburger to somebody. And they'll pay you $10 an hour for it. If you want to be lazy and sit back and say, that's all I want to do it. Because it's not the other man's fault. It isn't the company, the corporation, not the job, not anybody. It's your fault you don't have anything to give. Not theirs. They weren't the one laying on the couch sleeping all day long. I heard a comedian say this one time. He said there was a man working for a construction company, and he was just standing on the shovel. He wasn't working, he was standing on the shovel all day long. He was standing on the shovel with a cigarette hanging out of the side of his mouth. And he's standing there saying, one day I'm going to own this construction company. Said there's another fellow over there, a little fella. Said he just shoveling all day long, just dug shoveling. Loved to shovel, just shovel. So one day he bought the construction company. Said he's got 3 houses, 10 cars, 4 motorcycles, 3 pools. Got all kinds of money. Said the old boy still standing on that shovel with a cigarette hand in his mouth saying, one day I'm going to own this construction company. Yeah. Old boy that shoveled and dug, he owned it. Old boy was standing on the shovel, he's still saying it. One day I'm going to own this construction company. No, you're not. You're just stupid. You're stupid, you want to be stupid, and you're going to stay stupid. Let's put it like it is. It's true. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, just means you're stupid. Because it won't work. I don't know why we continue to do things that won't work. In science, they tell us that if you try an experiment and it doesn't work, then it's not true. But if you do the experiment and you do it over and over and over and over again, getting the same result, then it's true. Why do we do things over and over with the same bad result and think we're doing okay? Hanging in there, man. Really? Is there no light bulb at all? Nothing? It didn't work. And it didn't work again, and it still ain't working. And it's 10 years now, and it still hasn't worked. So maybe you ought to think about doing something different, really? Or changing it, or getting something to give. What a man has to give makes a way for him. And you learn that in the family. If mom and dad are doing what they should be doing and teaching the child properly. God taught us that. Give, and it shall be given unto you, the laws of reciprocity. Isn't that what the Lord said? Jesus said in Luke 6:38, give and it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Good measure, he said. With the same measure you give, it will be measured to you again. What's he talking about? What you have to give will cause something to be given back. Same thing that Solomon said. What a man has to give makes a way for him. When the little widow woman gave the mite, you know the story, God noticed her. Jesus noticed her. Why would he notice her over the people giving abundance? It's not only what we have to give, but it's how we give it. Motive and intent. Do you give just to be seen? Do you give just so people can talk about how great a person you are? That's not a family way. See, this is what we run up against in family. We run up against egos in our children. And one child wants to be the head honcho and the other child can't take it. We always want to beat down our brother or sister, do dirty things to them, squeal on them to mom and dad. That's kind of like what we do when we gossip among each other and we're squealing on somebody, you know so-and-so. It's not family. That's not the way the family ought to act. Had nothing to do with family the way it should be. See, the thing is, you can't give what you don't possess. How are you going to give what you don't possess? I can show you what I possess. I can show you my house, my car, my clothes, my home, the inside, the furniture. I can show you all of it. I possess it. It's readily seen. How do you show what you possess in God's family? What do we possess? It's not things. It's not carnal things. I know there's a great ministry today that says, that your spirituality is actually judged by the things that you have. One prominent speaker said that not long ago, that, if you're poor and you drive an old raggedy car, how could that be a testimony for Jesus? I guess unless you drive a Rolls Royce, you're not really hitting the mark. How illiterate can we get? And that, for lack of a better term, how stupid can we become in statements like that? That's just ignorant. Based on that analysis, what Bible do they read? Which one? Based on that analysis, Jesus wasn't a good testimony of himself. But he didn't have anything. He didn't even have a place to lay his head, the Bible says. The foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. Well, he was a bad testimony for himself. Paul, he was really a bad one. Always in jail, always hunted, arrested. He's a criminal. As far as his day, they thought he was a criminal. Beat him, stoned him, tried to kill him. Dear Lord. And he never did figure out how to get a Mercedes chariot. He never figured that out. Gold-plated, overlaid, speedometer on it. You know, so you could tell how fast he was going. You know. Maybe put a block of ice on the front of it and let the wind blow over it when he was running and have air conditioning. He never had that stuff. And yet, this is our criteria today. We forgot what the church is. We forgot the family altogether. We have no resemblance to a family at all. We just have people trying to get this and get that, and I'm going to get this and get that, and I'm going to do this and get this, and I'm going to get this and get this. And we don't give anything. We just try to get. In the workplace. And I've seen this through the years. I've lived long enough to notice it and see it. I've been a boss. I've worked with people as equal to them, what they are. Just a hired person. I've been a boss. I've been both sides of the fence. There are people that come to work for the sake of working. They want to do it. They get their paycheck and they're appreciative, but they work hard. They go in, they work. They don't gripe, cuss, complain, talk about their fellow workers. They just go in there and do a job for you. Get it done. And then there are those workers, they'll come to work and cuss the whole time they're there. Cuss everybody, cuss you, cuss them, cuss the job, cuss it all. And most of the other workers that are trying to work try to stay away from them. I don't want to hear it. Because you just all you can do is cuss about what you're doing. Then why don't you just go live in a hole in the ground and forget it? You know, there's state parks out here. You can go out and live in one if you can live. I mean, there's caves. If you can kill enough to eat and, you know, get you some potable water somewhere you can drink, why, you know, you can live. You might have to run from a black bear here and there, or a puma or something like that. But, you know, I mean, if you're fast, you can outrun him. Of course, a bear can run 40 miles an hour, so I don't know if you're going to make it or not. And you're not going to outrun the mountain lion, so forget that. And black bears climb trees too, so climbing a tree ain't going to help you. Grizzly, on the other hand, you can get up a tree maybe, but because the grizzly's too heavy, you can't climb anymore. But a black bear can go right up there with you. Zoom, faster than you can. See, you can live. You can go out and gripe to yourself. Gripe about everything. But leave me alone. See, I've never had to work. I've never had a hard time in my life. I've never, ever. My God, I never had to do nothing. I've never had to work. Isn't that amazing? I'm so glad of that. Nobody else has ever had to do anything. Poor little you. Poor little me. Dear God. Nobody's ever had to work but you. Isn't that amazing? Of course, I remember times I didn't even have a car. I walked to work 2 miles there and 2 miles back, worked in a cement foundry, making grade rings for highway construction, street construction, and walked to work every day. Walked home. Had 3 kids at home and a wife. Trying to live. Kept walking by this little car lot every day. Payday payments. Make payments here. So one of these days I'll stop in there and be able to buy one of them. Won't be for a while. I just kept walking to work. Lived in Garden Grove, California. Lived in California, land of opportunity. Had to walk to work. Didn't have a car. So I walked to work. So what? Had 2 feet. My dad walked to work for years. He never had a car. We never had a car the first few years I knew about. They never had a car. Couldn't afford one. My dad made $1 a day. Work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, make $6 a week. Our rent was $6 a month. And we lived on $18 a month. Yeah, but you could buy food them days. Yeah, you could, but you know what? It was hard to get that nickel to buy that loaf of bread. Really hard. I never ever heard my dad complain one time, and that's true. He may have, but I never heard him ever one time complain. The only thing I ever heard my dad say is he wished he could take care of his family better. One of the things that hurt me more than anything I think I've ever had in my life was my mother talking to me one day. When we lived in Lebanon, and I bought a new car. We'd driven back in a car that we had bought in California, and they told me I was going to have to pay sales tax on this car again to get it licensed in the state of Missouri. I said, I don't think so. I paid sales tax on it in the state that I bought it in. Well, you're not going to be able to get a license unless you pay the sales tax on it here. I said, I didn't buy it here. Trying to rip me off. I said, before I'll do that, I'll go buy another one. So I went and bought me a brand new Chevy Impala. Dealership there. I said, I'll pay sales tax on this one, but not on a car I already paid it on. I got hurt working on the job I was on. Fell out of the back of a truck. Caught my foot as I jumped, and my foot caught and I fell on my hip. And so they put me on medical leave for about 30 days till I got better. So I called a couple of places in California, and I got some meetings. I said, I can preach. So I asked Dad if he wanted to go with me, and Dad said, yeah, I'll go with you, because my sister lived still out, she lived out there, and Dad and Mom had already moved back to Lebanon, and so he said, I'll go out and visit with Sis and everybody, and so he went with me. So I asked him, I said, Dad, would you like to drive? He said, yeah, I'll drive. He drove the whole way. He wouldn't let me drive. He drove all the way home. There and back he drove. I kept saying, Dad, are you